My name is Beth Rose, and I moved here 20 years ago from Nova Scotia, and I lived in Nashville for a while, and now we live out in Lebanon. So I started photography in high school. I was like the entire photography club, and then that was 7 years ago, and then I went to art college in Nova Scotia, and I've been doing it ever since. So that would have been like 1995 or something like that, so about 25-ish years. When I lived in Nova Scotia, we spent all of our time outdoors, and it's the most gorgeous, not the most gorgeous, but one of the most gorgeous places on the face of the earth. It's remote and quiet and slow, but it was a little hard for me being that slow. I needed to move a little bit more. And I moved there from Cleveland, Ohio. My dad was a preacher, and so we ended up in Nova Scotia. And so in my mid-20s, I left and came down here for music. Growing up with a father as a preacher, I think it was hard. I was a different kind of bird, and I think it was a real struggle for my parents to have someone like me that didn't want to be shown the right way to do things, but wanted to make my own path and learn things as I go and kind of stand up for myself. And I think it was really hard for them to not be able to shape me the way they wanted to shape me. And so I rebelled like crazy. I got my dad fired from one of the churches he was at, and got him into some trouble at a few others. But it all worked out in the end. We all came back around, and it all worked out in the end. I was in art college, and I was in a really bad relationship. I had been with this guy for almost 7 years, and I sent some demos down to Nashville, and a record company called me. And so I convinced him to let me drive down here, and I just ended up never going back. I woke up one day and I was like, Nashville is my home, and I never went back. And I didn't sing anymore. I did a little bit. I sang open mics here and there, but then I was like, well, that's lame. I don't want to be just a singer. I want to do more, play an instrument. So I picked up bass, and I played that for a while. And but then I got married and got pregnant, and that got in the way. It was harder to play, so I ended up becoming a stay-at-home mom. But I've been married for around 16 years, and raising 5 kids is wonderful. I homeschool them. When I was a kid, everybody used to be like, Beth Rose, slow down. You're too crazy. You're too wild. You're too hyper. And now I understand why. I'm pretty sure that God designed me to be this way so that I would be really good at raising 5 kids. If I didn't have this kind of energy, who would dance in the grocery store with them? And who would embarrass them? It's really important that I be who I am so that I love having 5 kids. It's perfect. Yeah. I want more. We're working on it. I have been asked before how I balance everything, being a mom and a photographer and homeschooling and the honest truth is I don't. Anytime you excel at one thing, you have to sacrifice another. So I focus on making sure I excel at being a mom first, and then whatever's left over goes into art or cleaning the house or whatever, but I don't actually balance it. I fail at all kinds of things. So all of my work is about the infinity of creation and the intention of creation. There's some mathematical things that I'm really in love with. I love photography because of the math of it. I love things like reciprocity and the inverse square law and all of those things. And light and the way it works. I started on film and in the darkroom, and even though I can't stick with film in the darkroom now, I still use a lot of those concepts when I photograph. I don't just rely on digital manipulation. But if there's this thing that occurs repeatedly in my photography, it's Fibonacci. It's a series of numbers and pattern. It's the golden swirl, the golden spiral, and it appears everywhere. Like when we think of infinity, we think of how big the universe is, but it's also infinitely small. Like it never stops in either direction, And the golden spiral is everywhere. It's in the galaxies, it's in flowers, which I shoot a lot of flowers because they're available. And it's fascinating to me that you can find this in the galaxy, in the flowers, it's in the genealogy of honeybees, it's in every DNA. Everything has this same repeated notion of these mathematical, which I'm not a mathematician. I don't know a lot about it, but the repetition is there. And you can never, no one ever doesn't like math. People think they don't like math, but if you breathe, if your heart beats, if you like music, then you love math. And art is math, and math is art. Anyway, so it's this whole connection of everything through, see, I can't make it coherent. I can't start at a beginning and finish at an end. Galileo said that math was the language of God. So there's this idea that if all of the other laws of nature didn't exist, if God created a whole different universe, that math would still be the same. Like, that would never change. It's an abstract thing. It's not attached to anything. So when God spoke the universe into existence, he would have used math. He would have spoken in mathematical concepts, and that would be where you get the spiral of the galaxies and how that translates all the way down to the number of seeds on a sunflower, to DNA, to all of those things where you see that Fibonacci sequence and all of those mathematical concepts that repeat and repeat and repeat. So everything I do is about noticing that intention in creation, noticing the fact that nothing is an accident. And if there's no accident in nature, then there's no accident in us. So every dandelion and every daisy is so different and unique and perfectly intended. And if there's that kind of detail in a weed, then how can we deny the detail that's in us and the intention of who we are? And then how can we deny what we're worth if we know that there's intention in who we've been designed to be? The photographers that have influenced me the most would be Ansel Adams, because of his technical ability to look at, I feel like landscapes are kind of mundane in photographs. I think it's pretty hard to make a landscape look good, but Ansel Adams would look at a situation and he would frame it, and it was from start to finish. He would frame it the right way. He'd be so particular about the lighting, about aperture, and then it was all the way down to the way he processed it in the darkroom. And I really love the technical side of photography. When I was in art college, they were always like, "You're such a great technical artist, but your content is lame." They didn't like my content because it wasn't dark and sad and whatever. But the technical side, I've always loved. And my other favorite is Cartier-Bresson. And his compositions were just crazy awesome. He would get these moments, and I used to teach homeschool kids photography, and I showed them all these photos, and they all thought they were boring because everybody's used to digital now and flashy things, and these are old black and whites. And then when I explained composition to them, and they could see the way everything was moving together in the photo and all the lines and the way you'd go from one place to the next, and without even trying, your eye would travel all around. And Cartier-Bresson was the master of composition. And as far as any of my portrait or documentary type photography goes, I really would give anything to mimic him to some degree. So the way that I landed where I landed on my subject matter is I was doing mostly portrait photography and that sort of thing, and my husband kept referring to me as an artist, and I thought that was off because I was like, no, I'm a photographer. And then I started to realize that maybe I was, and I wanted to shoot something new and different besides just people. And when you have 5 kids and you homeschool and they're always with you, then you have to shoot where you are. And so because of what the photography is about, because of what it's all about the intention of everything and the fact that everything has purpose, it made sense for me to look at what was under my feet and what was right there and not go off and look for something. And so I shoot out in my yard with my kids. We hang out in the backyard and I photograph daisies, dandelions, but I look for something that's already there. There's that's the difference between photography and other art mediums, is that I don't create. I have to go see something that already exists. My job is to capture, not to create from nothing, but to find what's already there, but to see it in a new way, or to see it in my way. And so it's typically just things that are found in my backyard. My favorite image in my work is, it doesn't really have a name, I should name things, but it's a swirl. It's just a white background with a swirl on it, and it's actually, nobody ever knows what it is, which is my favorite thing about it, because I love that they look at it and they're like, what is this? But it's just a string that hangs down from a tulip, and it makes that perfect Fibonacci spiral. It's just so perfect and peaceful, and it's just, there's no manipulation, it just is that way. I want people, when they see my art, I've been through a lot in my life of who you are is not okay, or who you are is not good enough, or you should be like everyone else, or, you know, I've experienced what I'm sure most people experience, a lot of times of not feeling loved because of who I am. And the point of what I do is to try to show that that we are not loved in spite of who we are. We are loved because of who we are, because we were intended. We are loved because of who we are, because we were planned to be this way. I mean, I've had people tell me, you know, I'm too loud, I've had people complain that my smile is too big, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I don't know why you would tell someone that their smile's too big, but I have had people tell me, you know, you should tone it down and stop smiling. And Toni Morrison has this amazing quote in one of her books where she says, nobody loves the head of a dandelion because they're so many, so strong, and so soon. And it's a really powerful quote in the context of the book, but it also moves me because I think sometimes, man, all those things that everyone told me to stop being and to stop doing are all the things that make me who I am. They're all the things that, well, at this point, because I love it in myself, they're all the things that people love about me, as far as I can tell. There might be other things too, but I want other people to recognize that in themselves too. I want them to see that there's proof in a weed, then how can they deny it? I want them to be able to access that in themselves too, to know that, that they are intentional.